Let the record show that today's Thursday, April 10th at 3:10, and I am calling the Committee on Environment Legacy, Climate Legacy to order. So we now have quorum in our committee. Again, I want to welcome everyone. Although everyone's here, we are not having testimony unless the author of any amendment or myself call you up for answering questions that are posed by members. So, but thank you all for being here, though. Your presence means a lot. And I'm going to do multitask here, presenting my bill and also chair this committee, being that members want to participate in this theater too, that I'm not the only showcase member, but members, I heard that there's a lot of amendments, so that's why I decided I should be here chairing as well as defend my bill, the Omnibus bill, Senate File 2077. So with that, yes, Senator Lane, question?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a procedural question as we get started here. Senate File 1393 was laid on the table. Are we intending on picking that up today? Or?
We intend to do that.
Okay.
But I'm hoping that we could get this done and reserve some time later to finish the second bill, which is 1393. Okay, let's start off. I have an A19 amendment to Senate File 2077, and the amendment here I have intended to fund. This is in regarding to the community grant under Environmental Trust Fund.
This is the technical amendment.
Technical amendment. Oh, okay. So why don't Senate Counsel Mr. Mueller walk this through the A19 amendment? That's the technical amendment.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, the A19 amendment is a technical amendment to the budget bill. I'll quickly go through it. Lines 1.3 through 1.7 are just some new language that we are using now to deal with transfers that are forecasted into the future. Lines 1.8 to 1.9 adjust the appropriations from the AIS account to align with the fee increase and with the DNR's allocation. Lines 1.10 through 1.14 also is, again, some forecast transfer language. Line 1.15 to 1.20 is an extension to a previous appropriation dealing with the boat launch on the Mississippi River. And then lines 1.21 just has the direction to correct any subdivision and section totals in the bill. Lines 1.22 is a technical change to the appropriation to the LCC for dealing with the foraging task force. And then the last part, lines 1.23 through 1.28, are just some technical changes dealing with a report that is in the environmental permitting part of the bill. And it's all to the last section of the bill that are just some technical changes.
Okay, member, any question on this technical change? Okay, all in favor of the A19 amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion prevail. Okay, the second amendment here is A13 amendment. This is, from my personal point of view, is technical for myself as well. I had intended to put our community grant of the Environmental Trust Fund as a biannual appropriation, and so I missed that I overlooked that as we composed the bill, the Omnibus bill. So this is to say that we're giving biennium funding. 2026 and 2027 as well. So any question on that? Okay, then all in favor of the A13 amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion prevail. Okay. Another technical amendment. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Senator Weisenberg.
can we slow down just about 15 seconds? We didn't even have a chance to read the amendment.
Okay.
So,
all right.
thank you.
I'll let Mr. Mueller explain the amendment. The 837 amendment as it come to you.
Mr. Chairman and members, this amendment just puts into the bill one of the budget changes that was on the spreadsheet. It's the dealing with the ongoing transfer of the $100,000 each year from the general fund to the landfill contingency action trust account. This just was suggested by MNB to complete the action that is already in the Senate bill by repealing a previous transfer that made it look like it was ongoing. So this is just kind of dotting the i's and crossing the t's to something that was in the budget already in the bill. And it was suggested by MNB that we add this to sort of complete the process.
Okay, any question on that amendment? Okay, all in favor of the 837 amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion prevail. Senator Hawj amendment, you ready? Your A6 amendment? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I introduced the A6 amendment.
Go ahead, you may speak to the amendment.
Yep, this is just a bill that came in a little bit late from Itasca County with regards to the lands bill. So this would add a provision to the lands bill article to authorize Itasca County for the sale of certain tax forfeited land. This provision has been reviewed by the DNR, and there shouldn't be any concerns. It's in front of us today. Just like I said, it just came in late before we could include it in the lands bill.
Okay, does everyone receive the A6 amendment? I think it's in your package. Yeah. Any question on the A6 amendment? Okay, all in favor of the A6 amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion prevail. And Senator Lane, you have some technical amendment as well, am I correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I don't know which technical amendment you'd like first, but
The A5 amendment.
the A5, yeah, I could offer the A5, Mr. Chair, if I can find it. There we go. This amendment was brought to me both by Bowser and some interested parties. It's really what it is a redundant reporting requirement. For both local groups and Bowser have agreed to this. Non-controversial for the most part, so of course, appreciate your support.
Okay. Any question to the A5 amendment from Senator Lane? Right, no question. All in favor of the A5 amendment, say aye. 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 Oppose? Okay. A5 amendment is adopted. Senator Hawj, you have another amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe the A20, is that the one you're referring to?
You have A12 amendment or A20?
I do. Yeah. Mr. Chair, if I might be given just a moment.
Okay.
Till we do A12.
Sure. Any members ready with the amendment?
Oh,
Paper, scissors.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of other ones that are easy.
Okay. 833, right?
I have either the A35 or 25, depending on what version you have. I think the 35 is the most recent. 35.
Okay, the 835 is in your package. No, it's not? Okay. is passing out right now, so Senator Lane, can you talk about the 835 amendment?
Mr. Chair and members, this is a amendment that has to do with the Min Fish Organization. We've had, just actually had some conversations out in the hallway about this, and this is, it's an emerging issue. On Leech Lake, we've been having extreme numbers of cases of muskies that have been found floating dead. They have a study from Min Fish that they're ready and willing and, shovel-ready project for the most part. I don't know if you use a shovel in fish studies, but what this, in there, I've had some conversations with the DNR, and for right now, I'd like to amend it on as the way it is, but I think prior to hitting the floor, we might be changing the funding mechanism, so it's a good amendment. If I have any questions.
Any question from member first? Now, Senator Lane, since you talk about you might be changing the funding mechanism, I want to ask Mr. Mueller here to see if they will offset any of our budget.
Mr. Chair and members, the amendment is drafted from the Game and Fish Fund, and right now there's no target or whatever for the Game and Fish Fund. This would just be a one-time appropriation from the Game and Fish Fund. So no, it does not affect any other funding in the bill.
Okay, so all in favor of the A35 amendment, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, motion prevail.
A17, Senator, Mr. Chair.
A17?
A17. Although I wish somebody would give me the A19, then I could sing that Steely Dan song, Hey 19. It just seems to go over, you know. And I'm so glad Senator Lang did not do what, having Senator Kerry Rood here in the chamber with us today reminds me, Senator Fong, of those years of fighting to extend the muskie slot limit, and then how much just, it was painful now to hear the muskie. I think it's a conspiracy, Senator Lang. Somebody's killing my muskie, so. No, seriously, thank you for bringing that forward. That is an issue. A17 members, it's being passed out. This is just really the simple medical. We need to look at the medical exemptions when we're talking about the work in front of us, and I just wanted to make that available to people. And that's about it. It goes in what's consistent with the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of the United States, which is Code Title 21. It's all there in front of you, but it's consistent, giving medical exemption to those necessary products that are needed. And that's it. That's what we've done in the past. So please say yes to this. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion on the A17 amendment? Senator Kunish.
So could you explain this a little bit more? What kind of an exemption are you allowing or asking for?
So, Mr. Chair and Senator, I'm so glad you asked that question. So you ever had a TENS machine?
No, I've never had a TENS
Well,
machine.
it's a TENS machine. You've never had that? You ever had any kind of medical device where it's taken some kind of a battery to operate that medical device? Blue light therapy, ultraviolet ray, any of that stuff?
Not me personally, no.
E-STEM, anything like that?
No, no.
All right, so those types of things then, that's germane to, so that medical devices as defined by the Cosmetic Act and the Food and Drug Administration, those are medically necessary devices that people need. Anything from CPAP machines that are portable to you name it. And sometimes those batteries are needed. They're high lithium, or they could be one that gets all sorts of, but it's specifically for a medical device. So thank you for asking that.
But, if I may, but what does this
Kunish.
exemption do?
A battery that's designed, it just exempts it from that, from the program that we have in place.
And what program is that?
The e-waste exemption.
The e-waste?
Yeah.
And what is the e-waste? Oh, it has to be recycled? And it's exempt from being recycled? Is that what you're saying?
Necessarily, it could be, yeah.
Okay.
And also there's also a taxation on that as well, too.
Are you exempting the taxation?
Yes, it's a medical device.
Okay.
Unless you want to start taxing medical products, that would be a good front page of the Star Tribune.
Nope, just
All
asking
right,
for
just wanna
clarity,
know.
sir. All right.
Senator Ann Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Kunish, I do have a little experience with this. My dad had a Parkinson's disease device, and when he died, it was really hard to figure out what to do with the battery. So I encourage a yes on this.
Senator McHugh.
Thank you. I just have a question also. Sure. So isn't it already exempted from taxation?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yes, Senator McHugh, go ahead with your question, but I'd like to call on Mr. Stanley here to clarify, and I also want to have MPCA to come over and talk about this as well, if you know, if this is under your jurisdiction.
Thank you.
Senator McHugh, do you want to continue your question, or you?
No, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you if you'd.
Mr. Chair, members, as you've heard, this makes a change to the e-waste provisions, and what those provisions are, as you'll probably recall, this is from Senate File 1690. It creates a system for collecting, transporting, recycling of e-waste, and what the amendment would do is exempt from that system batteries and medical products, as well as covered products that contain those batteries. It has nothing to do with taxation, as far as I know.
Senator McHugh.
Thank you. So it is, but as I'm reading the language and how the amendment would, it would actually exempt it, not just possibly exempt it, but exempt it. Okay. Just want to make sure we're super clear. Thank you.
MPCA, Mr. Kudelka, please state your name for the record.
Mr. Chair and committee members, for the record, my name is Kirk Kudelka, Assistant Commissioner with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. I think the question again was just what the impact of this would do, and I will just confirm what Mr. Stanley had said. This does remove an existing exemption for certain types of medical devices and includes a little wider one for all FDA products that have a battery component to it.
Okay. Any further question, Senator McHugh? Okay. This is not a concerning issue to the MPCA.
Mr. Chair and committee members, we're happy to keep working with the committee on this language, yes.
Okay. Any other question? Okay. All in support of Senator Hoffman's amendment, the A17 amendment, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, motion prevail.
A21, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Senator Hoffman, A21.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The A21, do you all have it in front of you? And there's not a song about the A21 either, so.
The A21 has been passed out at the moment. Senator Hoffman, if you can slowly explain, because I think some of us can't keep up.
Absolutely. I will take my time, because what it really does is it amends the provisions that we passed in the 2023 legislative session that funding the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources Shooting Sports Facilities Improvement Grant Program. You guys familiar with that? What this amendment does are two things. It extends.
Senator Hoffman, the amendment's not ready to pass out yet, so no, regardless whether.
Silenced by Senator from the east side. I got it. I withdraw my amendment.
I was going to give you the gavel so you can help me speed up this committee, but you're too fast for us today. So. Any member ready for Senator Trukowski?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to offer the A11 amendment.
The A11 amendment. Is it in?
I think it's going to be passed out, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Senator Trukowski, can you explain the amendment?
Yes, the A11 amendment, when we put the elimination of the shotgun zone language on the DNR policy bill, there was questions about whether or not the language that we currently have in statute, in the preemption statute, truly gave counties the ability to formulate their own ordinances around and constructing any firearm discharge limitations in their jurisdiction or not. And Mr. Stanley afterwards sent us all a note saying, you know, you could read it that way, but it doesn't say that it doesn't say that conclusively. I think, Mr. Stanley, if that's kind of what it said. At the time, I know Senator Kunish was saying, bring back that language that we had the first day or one of the first hearings that actually had the language extending that authority to counties in it. That was Senate File 107. And so the A11, Mr. Chair, it repeals the shotgun zone and says any county in the state, if you want to form out your own ordinance, you can do it. And it will be your ordinance, and it will be up to you to enforce it. And it gets rid of the shotgun zone. Now, we've got language, and Mr. Chair, thanks for putting the language in the bill. However, somehow between then and here, I don't know what happened with the language, but I've got a handout. I think maybe, I don't know if it got passed around or not, if staff has a handout related to this amendment. Maybe they're working on it. Oh, it is out, okay. It is out. So I prepared a handout, members, so if you look at that, there's a picture, there's a map of Minnesota on each side of the handout. The one side has a current shotgun zone, and that line, members, is an approximation. It's just hand-drawn, so forgive me if it's not perfect. But you can see the southern part of the state is the shotgun zone where rifles are not allowed. The northern part of the state, any firearms are allowed. Now, if you flip it over on the back, you'll see that this is what the shotgun zone would look like with the language that is in the bill. The bill maintains and keeps a shotgun zone, but says if a county wants to be a part of a shotgun zone, it can do that on its own. So we could end up with something like this if we have what's in the bill adopted into law. And I'm not going to speak for the DNR, but I've talked to them enough about it, and they've talked to us. They don't want this. They don't want patchwork all over the state. So this amendment is exactly the language that was in Senate File 107 with exception. I changed on lines 1.9 and 1.10. It said 1 year, and I changed that to 2 years, which would allow the county to make a longer ordinance than they did before. And so I heard that feedback as well. But this, Mr. Chair and members, continues and moves, I think, perfectly in the direction that we had in the hearing when we adopted that language then to the DNR policy, or the agency policy bill. I thought it was just DNR, I'm not sure. Anyway, I'd ask for your support for the amendment.
Senator Drakowski, thank you for bringing this amendment forward. The language that's in the bill itself is taken from your original bill of Senate File 107, and I know that the language has been modified in a light degree after I talked to our colleagues, Senator Nelson and Senator Bolden, and also Senator Kupak, your co-author to the bill. So at this time, I will reject your amendment for the time being, but we could still construct something, and have more discussion as we move this bill forward.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Senator Drakowski.
I'm wondering if the DNR could speak to what's in the bill currently, Mr. Chair, and I would point out that the language in A11 is the language that's in Senate File 107, which is the language that Senator Kupak and I presented here jointly one of the first hearings of this committee this year. And so I haven't talked to Senator Kupak that he wants to go backwards and have a patchwork, which the DNR I know will not support or not. So I'm not sure where that came from. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure where this language came from, because it's not the language that we included before, and it's not the language in Senate File 107. It maintains a state shotgun zone and allows counties to claim their own state shotgun zone area, which will require the DNR to enforce, Mr. Chair, all of the counties, no matter where they are, the DNR would be asked to enforce this patchwork of a statewide shotgun zone as it is in the bill. So I would ask our adoption of this amendment, because I think it's exactly what we were talking about when we had the last hearing, and it extends permission to any county to create their own ordinance if they would like. Maybe DNR would like to talk, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I like to call DNR up as well. Either DNR or the council can explain what's already in the bill, but the DNR do come up. Well, I'll give the opportunity for Senator Wiesenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do believe, and maybe you can correct me, or Senator Drzelski can correct me, we did have this on the Senate floor and almost had it passed. And then someone made some assumption about guns shooting for 3 miles or something, which they don't do. And then everything went haywire. So we could bring ballistics in and talk about that. I'm sure Senator Lane could talk about ballistics all day long. But we don't want that, right? So they don't do that. It's safe. We can do this, and I'll yield so the DNR can speak. Thank you.
Yes, welcome, Assistant Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. For the record, Bob Meyer, Assistant Commissioner, DNR. So the language that's in the bill, and I agree, Senator Drzelski, it's different, I think, than the bill that we heard in committee. It would provide that counties have the authority to, any county in the state of Minnesota, Koochiching County, Dodge County, Dakota County, to pass an ordinance after public notice and public hearing to limit the types of firearms that may be used. You have to submit the ordinance to us, and that ordinance, I believe, is good for a period of, no, it's just 1 year, so they have to do it every year, it looks like. This does create a patchwork for us. Either of these amendments, I think we would like to continue working on this issue with the author and the committee. What we want to have is certainty. Shotgun zone certainty maybe is a term for it, but where we're going down is going to allow a county to prohibit hunting with perhaps a pistol or certain types of firearms, and that's just going to cause a lot of confusion for hunters out there. So either we repeal, our position would be repeal the line completely. Counties already have the authority to limit discharge of weapons under Chapter 477 or something like that, I believe, and address it that way. Otherwise, we're going to have an encyclopedia that hunters are going to have to follow to figure out what kind of firearms they can use during what seasons and where. Unfortunately, our hunting regulations are complicated enough, and this would make it a lot more complicated.
Okay. Members and Senator Drzelski, I know this is an unresolved issue, and it will be continue so as we go to the floor. But I'd like to that this year we want to put a close to it. So, but maybe not at this moment. So, I'd like to. Object to your A4 amendment, and I want to call folks to vote for it. Not roll call, but I'd like to move us along. Okay, all right. So all in favor of the A4 amendment, say A11. A11, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay.
Nay.
Okay. Motion does not prevail.
I have an A40.
Is that the shotgun?
Yeah. Do you want to wait, or do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait.
I'm good. You can go to Kunish first.
Okay, yep, Senator Kunish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have here the A7 amendment, and this is the, is it the A7? Yeah, A7. And this is the return of the wild rice bill. We talked about this a few days ago, and there was discussion and people that had some consternation and heartburn about some of the verbiage in this bill. The language in it states that our state will recognize the inherent right of uncultivated wild rice to exist and thrive in Minnesota. And there were those that were not comfortable with that word or the two words inherent right, and asked maybe, could we change that to something else that was a little more palatable, and I couldn't quite understand exactly what word would give
Senator,
these.
Sorry, Kunesh, I just for regulation or for our decorum, for food passing, I overlooked that last time too. We should have the page to do that for us.
Okay, so folks, we would need the page to hand out your tasty treats this time. Thank you, though. So back to the bill. In question was the language of inherent rights. And to be truthful, I really did look for something else that I felt, and the group, the coalition, who you see here today, spent the entire weekend looking for two words that might be more comforting to folks. And there was also the question around the legalese of the use of the word inherent rights. And so I asked council to look at those words and to give us an idea of what kind of consequence might come out of having legislation that recognizes the inherent rights of uncultivated rice. And I want to thank our Senate Counsel Primo and our Senate Counsel Mr. Stanley. And they came up with the response to the question regarding the effect of the bill language that would recognize the inherent rights of uncultivated rice, wild rice, to exist and thrive in Minnesota. And they reviewed it, they looked at it, and found that the use of inherent right of cultivated rice was not going to cause any issues, and they did not believe that the language created a private cause of action. And so just to remind everybody about this bill that you have in front of you, this amendment, we are looking to recognize the human responsibility, the responsibility of the state of Minnesota to recognize that inherent right of wild uncultivated rice. So even though there's no private right of action in the use of this word, it does allow the advocates to raise inherent right concerns to permitting authorities, potentially when we look at mirror avenues of redress that would otherwise be closed by a state permit. But the recognition of this responsibility that we have as our state rice, as our grain, as the very precious food of the wild rice, is especially important in this state and in the work that we do here today. And so, members, you have in front of you the bill that I brought in front of you, and I ask you to consider this and provide that positive, affirmative vote, ensuring that our wild rice is protected in the state of Minnesota.
Okay, member, the A7 is right in front of you. Yes, Senator Green.
Forgive me, I'm already losing my voice today, but I'd like to speak against the amendment. I too read the paper that was sent out by researchers, and there are impacts that this could put forward as far as getting permitting done in different areas. And I believe that the Commissioner of the DNR did testify that the language could apply to almost any body of water that we had that's shallow. And so there's ramifications here that I don't think have been taken into consideration. And then the other thing that could possibly become an issue into the future, and I believe it will, is when we start putting things into our law that like inherent right for anything, opens the door for us to put everything in. And I think that we have I think Senator Riesenberg used the reference to religion before, and there is words in here for sacred to the Indian tribes, and I understand that, but there's a lot of sacred things out there. And our First Amendment grants us freedom of religion, but it also says that the state can't impose a religion. And I think we're going down a road that would be very dangerous. And so Mr. Chair, I'd speak against the amendment, and I would ask for a roll call.
Okay, roll call is requested. Senator Wiesenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And speaking to the research that Vince Stanley did, there's also more to the story on the back page. Says we do not believe that the language recognizes the inherent right of wild rice exists to create a cause of action. It is nonetheless possible that a statutory language recognizing the inherent right of wild rice exists may be cited in litigation as support for another proposition. As you continue to read, what this tells me is it could be interpreted however we want it to be interpreted. So we're back at that. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Sarah McEwen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Senator Kunish, for bringing the A7 amendment forward. I am in wholehearted support of this amendment. I'm so pleased that you brought it, and I'm so thankful to all of the advocates who have come here today in support of this amendment and also just safeguarding the waters of our land, that the health of which is essential to protect and hold sacred monomen and wild rice. So I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for this wonderful food that you brought to share, that you prepared and brought for all of us to have today. And I can't thank you enough for your advocacy. It means so much to have all of you here in this room and in this building, in these halls. It changes everything to have you here. So thank you so much for being here. Miigwech.
Senator Green.
Mr. Chair, I think that maybe that this vote could be recorded in the journal as well.
It will require 3 show of hands in order for it to be recorded in the journal. Okay, all right. So, and Senator Hawj.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Senator Kunish, for bringing this. I know that we've talked a lot about this bill, and I would love to find, something that we can make work in the omnibus. As I've sort of described, just given the region that I represent in northern Minnesota, I do have pretty serious concerns about the watercraft provisions as they relate to many of the waters in my district. I know that we heard from the DNR on those concerns when they testified on this provision. I also would love to find language that is strong and supportive of wild rice, but I think inherent right is a really, really strong word that we don't really use in statute for very many things. And so I'd love to keep working with you. I know we've been talking and definitely want to keep those conversations going.
Okay, any other members? And thank you, Senator Kunish, for bringing this back to the committee and ask us to amend it. And I know that you collaborate and soften the language a little bit so that it's feasible for some members to support you as well. I'm with you at the very beginning. Each of us know our district well, and I can see. I came to the state a little later than American history, but when I come here, live next to Phelan Lake, and my district is one of the largest lake in St. Paul. And I learned a little bit of history that at one point in time, the Lakota would canoe through Phelan Creek, walk to harvest while right there. You know, that's eons ago. You know, that's a history that I learned. And so motorboats and other, you know, harsh activity could exterminate wild rice. And I can attest to one of the largest lakes in my district, and I'm sure it affects many lakes in southern part of our state and as well, you know, past below Hinckley and such. And so I'm glad that you bring this bill forward, and want to give this time for you to put in your closing remark, and we'll vote for the amendment.
So I would ask that folks do not, or would vote positively for this amendment. I know that perhaps that phrase inherent right is not used in legislation, but we are always adding verbiage to legislation. And so introducing this kind of language should not be such a shock or dismay when we talk about something. There's nothing in here that talks about religion. Certainly there is a discussion or a statement that, and it is just a statement, that wild rice is sacred to Indian tribes, and it's the core component to their cultural identity. There are a lot of things that we talk about that are sacred to us. For some people, hunting and fishing is sacred. For some people, the ability to do so many different things is really sacred to them, using their cultural heritage and their values and their morals. So, and sacredness is not always religion. So the whole religious component of this, the pushback on this is really confusing to me. This bill basically says and just defines what wild rice is. It's a nutrient-rich, natural food source that has been sustainably harvested in the state for centuries. That's a fact. It's sacred to our tribes and core component of their cultural identity. That's a fact. It thrives in clean, shallow water without requiring pesticides, fertilizers, or harmful chemicals. That's a fact, and I mean, how many other things, plants, can we say actually are able to do that? It supports our rural economies by providing jobs, and we talk about jobs here all the time, jobs, jobs, jobs. It fosters local businesses, and it supports ecotourism. Anytime I go anywhere and I ask people, what do you want me to bring there? Like, bring me wild rice. Bring me wild rice. That's what they want, wild rice. It plays a crucial role in preventing toxic algae blooms, absorbing carbon dioxide, fostering vital habitat for fish, and stabilizing lake beds. Who doesn't want that kind of lake environment? And that's what wild rice does. It's a fact. And it's also essential to safeguarding tribal food security and upholding tribal treaty rights. And that was the core of many of the treaties that were signed into law here in Minnesota. The ability to hunt, fish, and gather. And so this bill is just stating the facts of wild rice and saying it is the historic inherent right of rice because that's what it has always done. That's what it has always been. And why would we not recognize that? I have not heard an argument that has changed my mind on that. I haven't heard another phrase, 2 words, that makes any difference when it comes to inherent rights. And when we talk about the watercrafts, we have wake laws all over the place on lakes. Why would we not say, you have to go a little bit slower when you come close to the wild rice beds, please? We don't want you churning up the bottom of the lake. There might be people in that rice that you're not seeing. And if you come through at a high speed, it's going to rock that canoe and maybe knock that person who's standing up guiding that canoe off the canoe. Why would we not say, let's put safety first? I think, perhaps there are some other reasons that people are not wanting this bill, and there might be other entities in our state government that don't want additional controls or issues to be brought up to be used against what they want to do. But all it says is that you need to be careful in the wild rice areas. That's all it is. There's nothing nefarious in here. There's nothing underhanded in here. There's nothing, there's no ulterior motive behind the language that you see here on this page. This is really simple information and affirmation of what wild rice is in Minnesota. And so anyone who is not comfortable with this, and I've only had one person talk to me about this out of this entire room here. We had promises of support that were withdrawn, which is really super disappointing. But I wish you would just take a moment right here, right now, and think about that. All we're doing is stating what is absolutely true about wild rice, and we're asking people to be very careful and slow down when you are coming near a wild rice area. Two very easy concepts. And so, Mr. Chair and committee, that's what I'm asking you here today. I'm asking you to support the protection of wild rice here in Minnesota and recognize that we have that inherent right. We have that moral obligation to protect wild rice. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Senator Kunesh. We're going to vote now, but I just want to set some guideline in place that this is the committee decorum, so whatever outcome it be, member don't don't overexpress yourself in this room, so that we can stick to our committee decorum. And after recess, you can, but not during this time.
And Mr. Chair, could we have I don't know if I requested a roll call, please.
Yes, the roll call was requested already.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so roll call.
Senator Hur?
Yes.
Senator McEwen?
Yes.
Senator Green?
No.
Senator Strakowski?
No.
Senator Hauschild? Senator Hoffman?
Aye.
Senator Johnson-Stewart?
Yes.
Senator Kunesh?
Yes.
Senator Lane?
No.
Senator Wiesenberg?
Okay, there is 5 yea and 5 nay, so motion does not prevail. Okay, next amendment. 821 it is.
Do you want me to read slow, Mr. Chair, or?
No, go at your pace, Senator Hoffman.
Well, there's just the two things, the 821, now that it's in front of you, it extends the current appropriations expiration from 2026 to 2028. And it combines the remaining balances of the small grants and the large grants into one account balance. That gives flexibility to the Department of Natural Resources. Passage of the 821 will extend the availability of funds appropriated in 2023 from the Heritage Enhancement Account in the Game and Fish Fund, allowing an appropriate balance of $280,000 to continue to be available for those improvement grants, and also allowing ample time for the construction and taking into consideration the possible weather-related delays, which we have a lot. This is not new money, but it's an extension of the previous expenditure. So let me repeat that again. This is not new money. This is an extension of what we previously expended. The funds are appropriated from the Heritage Enhancement Account in the Game and Fish Fund and do not affect the committee target. The applications for this grant program are on a first-come, first-served basis and required a 1-to-1 match, Mr. Chair. Grantees must allow members of the public to shoot at reasonable times and for reasonable fees for 20 years after receiving a grant. The steady increase in the popularity of shooting sports, and especially the high school clay target league, has created capacity issues at shooting ranges in Minnesota. So, Mr. Chair, with that, the 821.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mueller, yeah, just like to give you, give us some fiscal note summary on this.
Mr. Chairman and members, Senator Hoffman did a very good job of describing the fiscal part of it. Mr. Chairman, Senator Hoffman did a very good job of describing the fiscal part of the bill, of the amendment. Yes, it's just extending the previous appropriation from 2023 that was in the 2023 bill. It just extends the time of that appropriation to be available. And then you can see on lines 4.32 through 5.2 of the old appropriation, it designated a certain amount for big or small grants, and it's striking that designation so the DNR can operate the remaining part of this grant program just based on an RFP and not try to split them up between big and small grants.
Okay, any question or discussion? Okay, good. All right, we can call him up, but I'll reserve. Okay, all in favor of Hoffman A21 amendment, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, motion prevail. Any amendments? Yes, Senator Green.
Mr. Chair, I have the 822 amendment.
The 822 amendments coming your way. Senator Green, you can go ahead.
I can start a little bit.
You can start,
So,
I think.
A little bit of the background on this is that there's been some potential threats to the payment in lieu of taxes to our counties. And I know that people in the southern part of the state don't get affected much, but in my region and to the east over into the Iron Range, it's a huge concern right now. I think that I had papers from St. Louis County said that if they cut the PILT payments, that what has been suggested by the 34%, that St. Louis County alone could cost them $1.3 million over the next couple of years. The Coochin County, 37% of their budget is those PILT payments. And so what the A22 does is looking ahead and under that this would allow counties to sell up to 10% of their tax forfeited lands to try to make up some of the difference that they're losing in these PILT payments.
Members, you have the A22 amendment already? Okay. Senator Hawj, you have a question?
Oh.
Okay, Senator Hawj.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Green. This looks like possibly a bill that I had, or at least based off of a bill that I had introduced, and maybe others have as well, regarding PILT payments. You know, I represent and you represent districts that are severely impacted by PILT payments because of all the public lands that we have. We are working on that issue in the tax committee in the Senate, and I feel very confident with regards to some of the proposals that are on the table with PILT. With regards to this, I had a provision for a pilot program for Itasca County to test this out, but it's not ready for prime time. I still want to have further conversations during the interim with the DNR and others stakeholders with the county and see if this is something that we can explore during the next session. So I would be ready to vote for this. I feel confident about PIL payments, and I think we could try a pilot out if we can work on it during the interim.
Certainly.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and, you know, I guess this is a new one to me, but I think it's a pretty decent idea. There are actually southern counties that have a vast amount of tax forfeited property that has been a challenge to sell or to purpose for any real purpose as far as the county's concerned. You know, Mr. Chair, you and I sit on Lessard Sam's, and that's a topic of conversation that comes up quite often on Lessard Sam's when it, you know, in storing and enhancing and protecting. I think as we've got into this program, not only on this side of it, but as Lessard Sam's moves on, that protect portion, I think, has to have something, you know, has to have a portion of conversation that goes along with this build. Otherwise, we're really not, you know, protecting the assets that we purchase. So, interesting idea. I think it's a good start, and you know, I'm interested in seeing what Senator Hostchild has running. I haven't heard anything yet this year on this one, but appreciate the amendment.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Green.
To Senator Hochschild's concerns, I realize that there would be some concerns with this, and I think that they would come from a lot of places. But if you do read the amendment, I did take that into consideration. And this would only be good for the next few years. And so what it's really designed to do is, just in case we start losing more in PILT. And as you know, there's a lot of land being purchased every year. This year alone, another 4,000 acres is going to be coming out that goes to federal. And that's in the legacy bill alone, plus the bill we have in front of us also has money for acquiring lands. And so we don't get PILT for the federal already. And so we're losing that, and it's gone as far as revenue goes. And what all this is designed to do is if that PILT goes away, there's an option here so that they can breathe a little easier. Because I don't know if you're hearing as much from St. Louis County as I am from some of my counties, but they're very, very concerned about this. So maybe if we could put this on today, it's not going to be forever, and we'll work it out in the rest of the session.
Okay. Before I make decision on that, I'd like to call the DNR to the testimony table to speak on this amendment, and I'll have this time while the DNR coming up to have Senator Kunesh make comment or question.
Thank you. Senator Green, are some of these lands, would they be found on tribal reservation lands?
Senator Green.
Senator Kunesh, it's entirely possible that they would be within the boundaries of certain tribal boundaries, but they would not, certainly not be part of tribal lands that they now hold in trust. And so the other thing there too is this would be at the discretion of the counties where they live. So they would, the tribal members would have a say in that as well.
They would have a say in it?
If the county decides to do this, they would have to make the decisions within the county whether or not they're going to do it. And so yes, anybody that lives in that county could be at that, at those county meetings.
Mr. Chair, so would you consider adding to this language that the tribes would have the first right of refusal?
Senator Green.
Mr. Chair, no, that wouldn't make sense in this bill. You're talking about a first right of refusal for them being able to sell tax forfeited lands. And so if they go into tribal trust, then there would be no tax revenue for those properties. So then that wouldn't make any sense. So the idea behind this is to get tax revenue coming into counties that are already tax poor. And so just to give you an example, in my district, even though Monoman County is a little over 25% non-taxable, Clearwater County is closer to 35%, and Beltrami County only has 17% of its land that's now taxable anymore. And they have to run their counties off that, and that's their social services is one of their biggest issues, their biggest expenses. And then if you tie onto that all the other issues within the county, they're starving out there. And so that's the whole idea behind this bill.
Senator Kunish?
Could I invite Senator Lang?
Senator Lang.
Because he seems to have a different opinion.
Well, I actually have an opinion somewhat, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an opinion somewhat in the middle. If you were to find that within tribal boundaries, I think would be then having first right of refusal, because then even, and I haven't talked to Senator Green about this, obviously, but you would have first right of refusal, but you would also still have the sale price.
Yep.
Right? So to the county, it's still a benefit. I think there's a medium there.
Okay.
Which, if you don't mind, is what I meant. If it is within tribal boundaries, then they would have that first right.
Mr. Chair, I was just informed by Mr. Stanley that there's no need to put it in because it's already in statute. The tribes already have first right of refusal for tax forfeited land that's sold.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. Learn something every day.
Mr. Stanley?
Mr. Chair, members, yes, it's section 282.0197, and what it says in brief is that if a parcel of land subject to sale under the tax forfeited land sale statutes consists exclusively of land within the boundary of an Indian reservation, the county auditor must first offer the land to the affected band of Indians for sale at the appraised value.
Thank you.
Deputy Assistant Commissioner Bob Meyer on
Mr.
this
Chairman,
amendment.
members, thank you for the record. Bob Meyer, Assistant Commissioner, DNR. And while I fully understand, the department fully understands the importance of private or payment in lieu of taxes to the counties and the northern counties' dependency on their general levy, on the general revenue there, we do trying to work with everyone on that issue right now through session. Just to remember, these are public lands. They provide access. They're open for hunting, recreation, all sorts of things, harvesting, foraging, all these things we've been talking about. So we would have a potential loss of 10% of public lands in some counties. While we are acquiring other lands, some of these lands have been around for history, for generations, and you can see on lines 1.17, whether bordering public water or not, there's a current law that requires approval of certain level of tax forfeit land that border public water for legislative approval, so we would be exempting that. And then also by private sale on 1.16. So a county may sell by private sale, so they could sell for $1, it doesn't say for what price, but to anybody. I would, if this would go on, I would recommend that we change on 1.16 the words private sale sell it at public auction, and then I would strike the bordering public water and making sure that the requirements, Mr. Stanley could help us, requiring legislative approval of tax forfeit land that border public water, that we are not exempting that. So for example, in Senator Hawj's district, they would be able to sell lands around Lake Vermilion directly to adjoining landowners for possibly at a discounted rate if they wanted to. There's nothing about that, but when we're similar to school trust fund land, it's required to be sold at public auction. So I would encourage people to think about that. And Senator Green, that would generate more revenue than a private sale. And then also the issue regarding bordering public water, so that we are not circumventing legislative approval that is required right now for lands bordering public water.
Senator Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to be clear, if you want, the private auction is fine with me. I find it really hard to imagine that my counties would be selling land for $1. But as far as the water goes, I mean, Commissioner Myers, you've been up there. There's not a lot of land that doesn't border public waters. I mean, there's water everywhere. And this is not going to affect, if I'm reading this right, and if I'm not, we'll change that, but this is for tax forfeited properties. And so this is not going to affect state parks. It's not going to affect federal lands. It's not going to affect the SNAs, you know. So it's just for the tax forfeited properties that were private, and we want to get them back into private if we need those funds should the PILT go away. That's the idea behind the bill. So Mr. Chair, I would I'd make an oral amendment to my amendment.
Okay.
And change private sale to at public auction.
Can you?
That would be on
state
line
the line?
1.6. After the word buy, strike private sale and insert public auction.
Yes, Mr. Mueller. Or Mr. Stanley.
Mr. Chair, Senator Green, members, we can make that oral amendment if you like, but it is a little more complicated than that, as what you are notwithstanding in this amendment is a whole host of public sale provisions in Chapter 282. So we can either, I mean, I think you have a couple options. We can make the oral amendment with the understanding that this will need further refinement, or you can support or oppose the amendment, now that you all understand what its goal is, and we'll have to continue to work on it. But either way, if this amendment goes on with the changes that Senator Green is talking about, I just want the committee to understand that it will take some further refinement.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Green.
Then, if that's the case, then I would leave my oral amendment there and add to it that the changes that have to be made by staff could be added to the bill, and if there's any other issues with it, we can deal with it maybe as the bill moves to the floor.
Senator Green, just wondering, like, it looks like this language still need work with the DNR, and Senator Hawj might want to work with you as well. So if you can withdraw and we continue to work and see how it cooperate into the floor. Or do you rather move it today?
Mr. Chair, I will, but I will have it at the floor if we get the language right, because as maybe Senator Hawj might agree, if the discussions fall through on the PILT payments, then we're stuck for 2 years. So I will withdraw the amendment with the understanding that we'll get the language right and bring it back on the floor.
Right, and so keep Senator Kunesh in the loop as well.
Okay, and Mr. Chair, at that, I do have the A23 amendment.
The A23 amendment. Remember, I do want to see a show of hand after amendment by amendment, so that we can move along fast. We still have another bill to hear after, so.
Okay.
So Senator Green, to the A23 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The A23 amendment seeks to amend the portion in the bill that deals with the abandoned boats. And I have no problem with removing the abandoned boats, but I do have a problem with someone being charged with a misdemeanor should they leave that boat there, because now we're making a criminal. We're going to make a criminal out of someone that just leaves a boat. And I understand the issues with it, but I think that also the penalties are pretty severe. And so I would like to take out the part that makes it a misdemeanor, and the line 105 also, same line, line 22, same page, different line, that remove the portion that says not less than 2 times or more than 5 times the cost incurred. That seems extremely steep to me, to charge somebody 5 times the cost of removing the boat. And so that's what the amendment is, and I'll stand for questions.
Question from members? Senator Green, I would contradict your amendment here, as now the language of the abandoned boat is in the Omnibus bill, unless I hear more from other members in support of your amendment. So, Senator Kunesh.
I wouldn't vote in support of this, but if somebody is abandoning these boats and leaving it for somebody else to clean up, to haul out, then I think they should pay for it. They've obviously made an intentional decision not to take responsibility for their trash, and this is not just a can or, some tires that they leave laying around. This is a watercraft that gets beached, and there is an extreme cost to it, and so I think that, that they need to be held responsible for this. And if they're going to do that, hopefully they know what the consequences are going to be, a misdemeanor, and they're going to have to pay the cost of doing that. Not more, so I think it's important that we hold people accountable and get the word out there that you can't just leave your crap laying in our waters. And so for that, I would not support this amendment.
Senator Ann Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Green. I am a co-author on the boat bill, the abandoned boat bill, and I too would not support this amendment because I think the language of saying it is illegal to abandon a boat is a much stronger message than if you abandon your boat, you're going to get fined. Again, I have many, well, I should say my husband has many boats, and I know the hazard that a boat, an abandoned boat presents. I don't think taking away the charge will be as effective in what I signed on to ultimately do, which is to hold those who abandon Watercraft accountable. So I would encourage a no vote.
All right, member. Senator Weisenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Green, stand for a question.
Yes.
Senator Green.
Senator Green, you are not removing the charge. They're still going to be fined, correct?
Senator Green.
They still will be fined, and furthermore, I believe that there is already laws in place that people have to remove the boats. And what this just takes away any discretion I would think that the courts might have and puts it into the hand of agencies. Because let's, for example, what if the person that abandoned the boat was 90-some years old and couldn't get there? In the case of the boat that was brought up as far as the on the Wisconsin border, I think you maybe even have some more information on that, and I'll let you talk about that. But there needs to be discretion, and the courts can decide what that discretion is.
Thank
Senator
you.
Weisenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Green. I did actually, so like I said, I wasn't aware of what was going on. I actually had the boat owner reach out to me that the boat that's in question, I think Senator Drzelski talked to the same person. It sounds like this person, this is the account from them, so take that into consideration. But they were going to try to remove the boat, and then they were told they couldn't, and then there was a back and forth, and then this person ended up, they were having some hard times in their life last summer, so they couldn't get rid of the boat, things that are very personal that I'm not going to go into here. And it sounds like they tried to remove it. They were stopped from removing it. So the boat has been sold, and now it's in someone else's hands. They didn't want to leave it there. It wasn't like they wanted this to happen, but we have to take these things into consideration. The boat, I know there's talking about oil and gas and stuff, that was removed by someone from the state of Wisconsin, I was told. So there's not that harm to the environment. Nobody here thinks we should be trashing our landscape with boats and cars and whatever. But I think this bill goes a little too far. So I would support Senator Green's amendment. And yes, people are going to, it'll be very clear that you shouldn't be dumping your large garbage in the environment, but taking everybody's rights away. If I get a speeding ticket, are you going to now take away my right to drive and my home and my right to feed my family and down the list? So there's a point where we're maybe going a little too far. Thank you.
All right, so members, yay and nay is coming up. All in favor of the A4 amendment, say aye. A23. Oh, why am I? A4 is all the way in front of me here. You're all right. A23. I read the wrong line. All in favor of A23 amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Okay, motion does not prevail. Any amendment?
Mr. Chair, I have the A27.
A27 amendment.
And I can start to explain it if you would like.
Yes, Senator Green, go ahead, explain it.
The A27 has to deal with landfill requirements. We are facing some more problems out in greater Minnesota, and one of them is that the MPCA has changed the regulations on our landfills, and because of that, some of them become non-compliant. Others were probably on the borderline of being non-compliant already. However, right now, there's no alternative for them. And what we fear in greater Minnesota is that if the landfills close, what you're going to end up with is what we had years ago, which I remember distinctly, which is garbage along the road. People dumping refrigerators off in the ditches or wash machines. And so what the A27 does, it allows for the landfills that are in operation now to continue operating and not be closed down so long as they operate under the current conditions that they're under. And it allows us to have a place to continue to put the stuff that needs to go to the landfill in a place where it's at least contained and not along our roads. And it's a pretty simple bill. So I won't ask for a roll call on it, but I will certainly take questions. And I think that this is an important move for the state of Minnesota. I understand that as technology increases, we can find more pollutants and we can dig deeper, but to go back in time now and demand that counties that to put in landfills that they simply can't afford is not workable for us.
Thank you. Any question from members? And I also like to get testimony from MPCA. I'd like to get MPCA advice on this. Go ahead, state your name for the record and give us your advice.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Kirk Adelka. I'm Assistant Commissioner with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. We oppose this amendment. This is a very broad amendment that would prevent any further advancement of landfill regulations and protections. We know that as we have learned over time, what we throw in our waste and our landfills has the impact of human health and the environment has grown. We've moved, for instance, from the 80s to 90s to line landfills for MSW, but a number of other landfills do not have liners, and we have leakage into groundwater and impacts to drinking water. This would prevent those changes or any others in the future to address environmental risks that we have identified.
Okay, Senator Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Kudelka, but that doesn't solve the problem. And even permitting for some of the facilities that my counties are trying to put in place, they have to deal with the permitting and the expense of that. Plus, they also don't have the money to put those facilities in. So at least if they're in the landfills, they're in one spot. What you're suggesting is to close off the only viable option that we have right now and not offer anything else. And that can't be acceptable. You're not going to stop the pollution because it's just going to be everywhere instead of in one place. And so I think it's a reasonable amendment, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Weisenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And also to, what Senator Green just said, so if we have a landfill that has a bunch of stuff in it, and let's say the MPC or some agency says we have to remove that, there could actually be a bigger environmental impact by taking all that garbage and moving it around and creating more chaos where, like he said, it's in one spot already and there it is. But now we're going to dig this up and who knows what we can release in the environment, and think of all the gas and diesel trucks it's going to take and the greenhouse emissions it's going to take to move this stuff around. So let's support this bill. Thank you.
Sarah Ann Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for the testifier. And
Yes.
I'm just blanking on your name, I apologize. Could you explain, and Senator Green, I think that I'd love to work with you on this, regardless of what happens today. But could you explain what kind of materials might be what kind of rules by the PCA might be impacting landfills, just to get me up to current kinds of concerns? Like, is it for leachate or for emissions, or what is it for, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Kodeka.
Mr. Chair and committee members, I think there's a couple. One is our construction and demo landfills. We have a number of them, nearly 80 of them unlined. Construction landfill and demo landfills unlined across the state that are right now causing groundwater contamination.
Okay.
And we have instances where drinking water wells, private drinking water wells, have been negatively impacted. This would also, the last line would impact us trying to bring current landfills into compliance with current regulations. So if someone is not complying currently with a regulation, for instance, not the proper lining or proper closure of a landfill, this would prevent that from happening also. It basically freezes a landfill, no matter whether it's in compliance or not, at that current operation into the future in a perpetuity.
Mr. Johnson Stewart?
Yes, I have a follow-up. So what you're saying, let me see if I can summarize.
I have something, though, to
Oh.
what he just said, Mr. Chair, if I could interrupt
That's
for a
fine.
second.
Sure.
This bill, Senator Green said, if they are currently in compliance, we can't do anything. So he just said if they're not in compliance. So we're not arguing that point. From what I understand, this bill would say if they're already under compliance, we don't touch them, right? So that's what it says. So what he said would be incorrect. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, and
Senator
in
Johnson Stewart.
response, Senator Wiesenberg, I believe the intent of this is and let's just back up and we'll use his example. So let's say we have a construction demo landfill that prior to regulations did not require a liner. Okay, so they're all over the place. So for the last X decades, there has been waste being put in that landfill. As per current law, it would not be in compliance because it doesn't have a liner. So my question is, and again, please let me know if I'm characterizing this correctly. Under this amendment, Senator Green, those landfills would allow to continue in that operation because they were approved and constructed when liners were not required. Mr. Green, or Senator Green.
Yes, Mr. Chair, yes, that is correct, because they were in compliance when they were put in.
Yep, understood.
And so what I ended up being here is the guy that's anti-environment, and that's simply not true.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to.
What I'm saying is there's no viable other option right now. And so what's going to happen is, like Senator Wiesenberg said, if they have to clean them, it's a way bigger problem, or they're going to have to build a facility which they can't afford, or they're going to have to try to find a way to ship their landfill stuff miles and miles away. Lake of the Woods, for instance, the city of Baudette up there, they're looking at over 200 miles to move their stuff. It's not feasible. And so until there's a viable option, there has to be some concessions, or you lose in the end.
So Senator Green, thank you. And again, I'm not casting aspersions, I just wanted to get it right. So back to the testifier, what is the PCA? Could you tell us what is the PCA's response currently to a non-compliant landfill that doesn't have a liner in it, and perhaps it's the only landfill available for a rural community?
Mr. Kodaka.
Mr. Chair and committee members, right now, there are some landfills that do not require liners. I don't mean to make this more difficult, but.
No, well, it's out of compliance, we'll
Right.
just say.
So if a landfill is not in compliance, we do work with them first on a schedule of compliance to see how they can come into compliance. So for instance, if there was a problem at a landfill, maybe they didn't add the right amount of cover or doing other types of requirements, they would need to we would work with them on a schedule to bring them into compliance. In terms of you mentioning unlined landfills and a transition to a lined landfill, the state has programs to help with building transfer station recycling facilities and other types to reduce the amount of weight. We have also proposed in the past efforts to provide dollars to C&D landfills, for example, construction and demo landfills, to build enhanced covers to protect groundwater, to build transfer stations, to take them to other landfills, to replace those unlined landfills, to be more protective of human health and the environment. So the state has proposed financial assistance also to help any of those making the transition.
Senator Herr, or Mr. Chair?
Senator Johnson.
So you're saying the state's proposed to have this kind of program, or you currently have funding to do this kind of program?
Mr. Kudelka.
Mr. Chair and others, we have various types of grants out right now to reduce the amount of waste that goes to landfills. We also have the CAP program that we do come to the legislature to seek funding for various projects across the state to do some of these projects also.
So, Mr. Chair and Senator Green, I think this is a big problem, and I think it would impose a hardship on a local community. And so I'm right with you. When I read this amendment, I got very nervous thinking of the expansive, this is a big issue, and I would concur, but I think it is a problem. So I'm going to vote no, but I would very much like to work with you on this, understanding, I do have some understanding of how landfills work, and it sounds like you do too. But we got to fix this, because if a community has a non-compliant landfill, I totally agree with you too. Sometimes digging it up is worse than letting it be. But I'm also concerned about leachate and other things getting into water. So I'm going to vote no, but I would very much like to figure out what to do. It sounds like these communities need funding. They need technical assistance. In transportation, we passed a bill that would allow funding for local assistance around transportation issues at the University of Minnesota, so possibly we could latch on to that. But I would agree this is probably a significant problem, and I appreciate Senator Green bringing it, but I think it's a little bit more complicated than this. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Senator
Okay,
Green.
Mr. Chair, can I close up?
Senator Green.
I don't want to belabor this, but because I could go on for hours as to, what the counties have told me, and with all due respect to to Mr. Kudelka, that's not what we get from our counties, because even to apply for some of the grants cost them money. And they're only partial grants, and which means they're going to have to raise property taxes, which gets us right back into what we were talking about before. And so as far as this issue that's going to all of a sudden contaminate the world, these things are in place right now. It's landfills, it's construction landfills for the most part. So you're not dumping hazardous waste in these landfills. And so there's just a lot of issues there. I agree. I would love to have landfills that were lined, and there's other issues with that I could talk about too. But we don't have that. And we're up against the clock. So I would hope you would change your mind. But I think we need to move forward with something. And if it's wrong, we'll change it, but at least we won't be shutting down our counties and leaving them with no options. Thank you.
Okay, members, all in favor of Senator Green A27 amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, motion does not prevail. Okay, any other amendment? Senator Hawj.
Mr. Chair, I have the A12 amendment.
A12 amendment. A12 amendment is in your package.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an amendment that is in part based on an MPCA report regarding some of the exemptions in PFAS as well as lead and cadmium. So in this provision, we would move youth ATVs to be considered like normal ATVs, which would put a sunset at 2032 with regards to PFAS, because many of those components are internal. A lot of the youth products that were originally identified were things that small children would maybe put in their mouth or that type of thing. This is sort of saying youth ATVs are a different thing and put them in the category of regular ATVs. It also addresses some of the things in the MPCA report regarding internal components. And then we also are making exemptions for ink and mechanical pens, professional artist materials. I've heard from several artists along the North Shore and in the Duluth area about some of the paint materials that they use that contains cadmium, and so that's a concern. We also have heard a lot about the key issue and key fobs. We know that there aren't an alternative for keys in Minnesota, so I'm really concerned about if this law stays in effect, that we may be outlawing keys here in Minnesota, which could be very difficult for obvious reasons. And I already talked about the internal components. So, Mr. Chair, that's kind of what the amendment is. It's been worked on for quite a while with a lot of different stakeholders, and we did post it publicly, for folks to review.
Any question from members? Testimony from MPCA?
Mr. Chair, I just want to offer up my support and note that in the Star Tribune today, there was a lengthy commentary about this very issue and what a hardship it is creating, especially for car dealers and realtors. And so I'll be supporting this amendment.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. For the record, my name is Tom Johnson, Government Relations Director for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And Mr. Chair, I have spoken quite extensively with Senator Hauschild about this amendment. There are provisions in here where the agency is not quite there yet. However, we're comfortable with this moving forward at this time so we can continue having the conversation. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All in favor of, yes, Senator McHugh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I need to take a little bit of closer look at this amendment. I apologize, I didn't get to really look at it before now. There's certainly some provisions like the paint and some issues that I also have been made aware of that are perhaps there really is no alternative, and I think it could be a reasonable idea to write in an exception. But I do have some concerns about the juvenile ATV. I'm a little bit concerned about making it permanent in a way that would be a sort of put us in a weird position in 2032, where then the adult ATVs would have to be compliant, but the juvenile ones would not anymore. Nope. And perhaps I'm just confused, but and I'm not going to strongly oppose this right now, but I just want to make sure that, as I understand it too, we do have a way under Amara's law right now for industry to be able to demonstrate to the agency that there is that the use is very valuable and important, and there's no other alternative but to use something that contains PFAS in the production and in the product. So I just I need to look at this a little. I'm just a little bit concerned when we are writing in permanent exceptions that don't just follow through on the process that we have created, and that's just my concern, but I'll defer to you.
Sir, I'll try respond to the question, and then we'll move on your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Senator McEwen. Just to clarify, what we're doing is just treating youth ATVs the same as regular ATVs. So we're not creating a different exemption for youth versus regular. We're just putting it under the same timeline as ATVs.
Okay. All right. Well, Senator Hauschild moved the A12 amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion prevail. Senator Lane?
Sorry.
A29 amendment.
Oh, sorry, there we go.
So, Senator Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The 829 amendment is some trapping provision changes that have been worked on for a couple of years both of the trapping groups actually came together and have agreed on some language. I did talk to the DNR about it, and they're good with the changes. There's a couple that got amended out of the amendment, but overall, this is kind of the Peace in the Valley amendment that we've come to provide to you this afternoon. So.
Any question from members? No question from members, so. All right, all in favor of Senator Lane, A29 amendment, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay. Motion prevail.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then I have, I believe it's A25. 24? The military one. $33. Apologize, Mr. Chair. Got my numbers mixed up.
Mr. Chair, I have one ready to go.
Senator Johnson Stewart.
All right, thank you. I actually have three, but I'll let Senator Lang go after this one. So just this one right now, I'd like to move to reconsider the A7 amendment, and I'm offering an oral amendment, please.
You have to vote on the motion to reconsider first.
So the A7 is the wild rice amendment.
Okay, we're voting to reconsider the A7 amendment. Do we need roll call? No. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay, motion prevail. Division has been called. We need to see a show of hands. All in favor of the motion to reconsider? This is the A7 amendment asking for reconsideration. Okay. So I need to see a show of hand of those who want us to reconsider the A7 amendment. Okay. All opposed to the reconsideration, raise your hand. Okay. Reconsidered is reconsidered, so motion prevail.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to offer an oral amendment to the A7. Let me know when I can say it. I'd like to delete the language "inherent right of uncultivated wild rice," end quote, and replace it with the following. Subdivision 1, policy findings. It is, well, I'm just rewriting the first sentence, not replacing it. It is the policy of the state to recognize the innate significance of uncultivated wild rice's ability to exist and thrive in Minnesota. And then I would also like to delete the portion relating to Watercraft, which are lines 1.17 to 1.25. Mr. Chair, that's the extent of my oral amendment.
Yes. Okay, we're going to have Mr. Stanley restate your oral amendment.
Mr. Chair, members, the oral amendment to the A7 is as follows. On page 1, line 5, delete inherent right and insert innate significance, and delete rice and insert rice's ability on that same line. And also, Mr. Chair, to delete lines 17 through 25. So I'll just reread what the sentence would read if you adopt this amendment. The sentence on lines 5 and 6 would read, "It is the policy of the state to recognize the innate significance of uncultivated wild rice's ability to exist and thrive in Minnesota."
Okay. Members, any questions on that amendment?
Mr. Chair, I would like to know what Senator Kunesh thinks.
Senator Kunesh.
This is a hard one for me to accept. When you look at the original bill, we have trimmed it down and trimmed it down and trimmed it down to accommodate the members here. But I think it's important not only to the advocates and the coalition that have worked so hard on this, and for that reason and that reason only, I will accept this amendment.
Okay. Senator Hawj.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Senator Johnson Stewart and Senator Kunish. I know that we've had a lot of conversations about this bill and this provision, and I know how important wild rice is to people. I represent a very unique district in northern Minnesota. I represent 2 tribal nations. I also represent iron mines. I represent future mining opportunities in northern Minnesota. I represent the North Shore and environmental communities. It's a unique place to represent, let me tell you, because there are so many diverse opinions on so many different issues. And I wanted to get to a place where we could identify and showcase the significance of wild rice, because that is important to the people that I represent at Boys Fort and Grand Portage and on the brink of Fond du Lac. And you know, every time I visit Boys Fort, I get wild rice from the chairwoman or previous chairwoman and others. And so I do love it myself, and I appreciate those of you that shared it with us. I do, however, want to point out some of the challenges that we are facing on the Iron Range right now, because they are also impacting people's lives. We just got word that 630 steelworkers are laid off from their jobs at Minorca and HibTech. We don't know if those folks are going to come back. Minorca is being weatherized. That means they're looking at long-term into next winter. HibTech is running out of ore. And we have 2 projects in my district that have been stalled for over a decade. And so we have to find a way in our communities to come together. We have to find a way to look out for one another. And that means understanding the rights of tribal nations and wild rice and all the things that folks find important to them, and the core jobs that people rely on to feed their families, and the wealth that comes from the earth that all of us use each and every day. Those of you that drove your cars here, those of you that using your cell phone right now, I can see you. You're using the materials we get from the earth that we get from northern Minnesota. Just like we eat wild rice, we use the materials from the earth. Those 2 things go hand in hand. So how do we get to a place where we can ensure that these things can work in tandem and happen? That's what I try to do. I try to represent all the people that I represent as best I can. And it's not always easy. And I will say that when it comes to the wild rice issue, we also know that there's a wild rice standard that is really, really impacting a lot of our minds. Right now, KeyTac is on the brink of not being able to operate because of a wild rice standard that they want to meet, that I want them to meet, that we all want them to meet, but they simply can't with the existing technology that exists in our world. So how do we get to a place where we can have this really strong sulfate standard that protects wild rice and make sure that our mines don't close down? That's what I'm trying to figure out. So I want you to know where I'm coming from on these issues, because they're really hard in northern Minnesota. But I want to find a way for us to showcase the importance of wild rice in our statute, and I'll continue to work on ways that we can look out for our steelworkers and our mines in northern Minnesota, because I got to do both. So I really appreciate everybody that have put their heart and soul into these issues, and I'm going to do everything I can to help you one way or the other. So thanks so much.
Senator McHugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't like the new language. I'm sorry. I appreciate that it's something, and I know that it's a real heartfelt effort to make a compromise and to get people on board who weren't as comfortable with the old language. I really, it was an oral amendment. Can you say it could you read it one more time to us?
Yeah.
Senator McHugh, we'll just have counsel here.
Thank you, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Senator McEwen, the sentence on lines 5 through 6 would read, "It is the policy of the state to recognize the innate significance of uncultivated wild rice's ability to exist and thrive in Minnesota."
Thank you. And then there was also going to be a deletion of part of the amendment?
Delete lines 117 to 126.
And what's contained in those lines again?
Mr. Stanley.
Mr. Chair, Senator McEwen, these are the changes to Chapter 86B, that would, if enacted, prohibit a person from operating a watercraft through an uncultivated wild rice bed unless the watercraft is propelled by hand, and would also prohibit a watercraft from being operated at greater than a slow no-wake speed within 150 feet of an uncultivated wild rice bed. And I should point out to the members of the committee that in Chapter 84, there is also existing statutes that govern how you must act if you are operating a watercraft near a wild rice bed.
Thank you. Okay, so that would be deleted from this bill, but there are some other protections in other parts of the statute. Okay. So yeah, I'm not happy with the deletion of the language. I thought that Senator Kunish made an excellent case for why that was really important, that people could be there, they could be ricing, that this is also a sacred food to our state, and that it deserves that respect of not having a motorboat running right through it or near it and causing all of this upheaval and destruction. I also, I liked the initial language because I felt that it really evoked for me a sense of that sense of sacredness of what something is, when something is sacred. And I would note that when I was gone and I actually missed the initial hearing on this bill, I was visiting my aunt who lives down in the Florida Keys. And when we asked her, is there anything you'd like us to bring you from Duluth? Guess what she said? She said, wild rice, please. So we went to ACO and we got some wild rice for her. I like the initial language better. I will support this change, but very reluctantly, and only because I'm hearing through the grapevine that the advocates who are here have said that that will be okay. But if you want to come back again next year and fight for better language, I'm with you, okay? Please keep up the fight, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you very much. I wonder if there's a representative from the advocates group that wanna speak.
So this is, again, I just want to reinforce this. This is about a respectful coexistence between two cultures. Not putting one culture above another, but a respectful coexistence. And that means we can respect each other's cultures. We can do that. And that's what this bill is about. And that's what the inherent rights language was about. And I think we did a really good job explaining that when we were here Tuesday. And we have already gotten rid of so much language that would have helped to protect this sacred food source. I'm hearing you guys say that boating is more important than wild rice. And as Deb said before, you know, this is clearly, you know, white supremacy. We were all born into it, and when you put one culture above another, that hurts. You've seen me leave here because it's really, really hard to watch this happen, and it hurts. You know, my children have missed out on time with their mom because she's been working nonstop to try to help protect Monoman from the threats that are coming our way. And you know, this is a time where I know I hear you, Senator Hawj. I hear what you're saying about about the jobs. Wild rice does bring jobs, and I don't think that we need to destroy one culture to create another. And that's what this bill was about, was creating that shift in our minds of valuing the natural world over, you know, material things like you were talking about. Like, I have a phone in my pocket, but it's not what I love about this world, that's for sure. I have a car outside. That's not what I love about this world either. And I really, really want you to understand that. And I think that it feels like a direct attack on our culture to hear that our culture can be erased and your culture can remain. That's what I heard today, and it hurt. And it hurt bad. This is cultural genocide. Our culture is dependent on the wild rice. And it's dependent on our connection with the land. And when you poison the land, you poison the people who live off of that land. I'm from Leech Lake, and my reservation is the home of a Superfund site. And I'm here to tell you that once our lands, our animals, our waters are contaminated, there's no going back. There is no going back from that. 40 years later, it is still contaminated with no end in sight. And there are people there who harvest and who live off that land. And I want you to know that we will keep coming back. And we will keep coming back. And we will keep coming back. So I would say that you guys should pass this today in its full entirety and respect my culture as I respect yours. I walk between two worlds. You do not see me going out and, like you said, I don't key your car. You shouldn't come and destroy wild rice. You know, it's like we value different things in this world, but I think we have to work towards Senator Hochschild, understanding each other's cultures and working towards helping one another and protecting the world for the next generations. Miigwech Bizindawi, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And before, we will take no one testimony just because we're short of time.
If that's all right, something real quick.
We're short of time. Maybe after, when we pass this bill, you may speak.
I would love to speak because I haven't been getting paid for 9 months to do this work.
Sure.
And so I don't make a six-figure salary. But
Okay.
as you
So,
know,
okay, member. Okay. First is the oral amendment. We will take Senator Johnson's oral amendment to the A7 amendment. All in favor of the oral amendment, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, motion prevail. Prevail. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Now, members, the A7 is before you as amended. Okay. All in favor of the A7 amendment, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, motion prevail. The A7 amendment is adopted to Senate File 2077. Okay, any amendment? Senator Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have the A33. I'll get us back on license topics.
Okay. To the A33 alignment amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this was brought to me by the Department of Veterans Affairs looking to, expand the reduced license fees for veterans who are 50 to 99% disabled. And then if you look on, it's for hunting, it's a $5 fee, and for fishing, it's a $5 fee. And that's kind of the scope of the amendment, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Miller.
Mr. Chairman and members, this would have a effect on the Game and Fish Fund on the revenue side, tracking what this was originally in the governor's budget as a minus $320,000 a year reduction to the Game and Fish Fund. A little bit less the first year, but then once it's fully implemented, it'd be about $320,000 a year loss in revenue to the Game and Fish Fund.
And Senator Lane, you said the DNR is okay with this? Or
Mr. Chair, I had a discussion with the DNR in the hallway, and I might have nodded my head in agreement to what we were going to do in the future for the Game and Fish Fund.
Mr. Meyer.
When it comes to this amendment, it isn't spoken for specifically in here, but there are some increased revenue opportunities, so.
Mr. Chairman, members of the record, Bob Meyer, Department of Natural Resources. While this bill was contained in the governor's budget, the changes that have now been made to our operating adjustments from the heritage enhancements to the Game and Fish Fund and other pressures on the Game and Fish Fund will force us to be back for license fee increases probably next session. So if this bill does go forward, I would ask everyone who votes for it to please support our license fee increase package next session. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, there was my head nod.
Senator Lang, what amendment are we on? I'm sorry. 33, thank you. Just want to confirm.
833 amendment, this amendment deal with disabled veterans reduction fee and with the condition from the DNR. And I want to make sure that we remember that this has to do with fee increase in the long haul. So all in favor of the 833 amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion prevail.
And I have one more, Mr. Chair.
Certainly.
It is either the 824 or the 830. I don't know if Mr. Stanley.
The 830, you may speak to the amendment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is the second time today I'm doing Senator Weber's work for him, so I think he should appreciate this. But the language is found in Senate File 715, and realistically what it does is, if we remember, we went through a pretty robust public waters inventory discussion, well, really over the last 5 years. We've talked about it in depth. And what we ended up doing that came out of conference committee last year is we gave $1 million to the DNR to do a new public waters inventory over the next 8 years, $1 million a year over the next 8 years. This doesn't change any of that, but there's been some discussion with ag groups, and realistically what we wanted to say was, in this language, it's pretty simple, but what it does is says if it's on the public waters inventory, it's public waters. And if it's not on the inventory, it's not public waters. So just a point of clarification with that. It's from my understanding, so.
Okay, we'll have to call on DNR again on this.
And Mr. Chair, I'll just add one little, this was a Supreme Court case that we dealt with for quite a few years, and I'm not changing any of that. I'm not going after that. The controversial part of it, but.
Mr. Meyer.
Mr. Chairman, members, Bob Meyer, Department of Natural Resources. To the amendment, what we are changing is other language. That does say there are other characteristics in statute and rule that a public waters does fall in, not just on the maps. So at this point in time, we would oppose this amendment.
Okay. And Senator Lane, I will oppose to this amendment as well. This will undo our 2024 legislation. So members, any further question? If not, we'll motion.
Well, I'll stand for questions. Or could we do a roll call on it, Mr. Chair?
We can do roll call. Roll call has been asked. And as I say, member, this will yes, Senator McCune.
I just strongly oppose this and urge a no vote.
Senator Wiesenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the language. I know there was some language that passed last year, and I have people in my district and my counties that are concerned about their now drainage ditches being turned into public waterways. I don't know if that's part of this or not, but I know it's a concern of mine, and it's something to think about. If we're taking people's land and turning what is on their property into a public waterway, or a pond that's in their land and turning it into a public waterway, if the DNR is going to be changing the public mapping system, we need to work towards not taking private property away. Thank you.
Senator McCune. Oh, Senator Kunish.
Yeah, I also oppose this. I'm trying to find my notes from last year on this, and there were some really good examples about why it is so important to be able to include certain bodies of water that were not included in the inventory. And if I could bring it up right now, I would. I'm frantically trying to find it, but I strongly oppose this.
All right.
And Mr. Chair,
Senator Lang.
thank you. I would add that I agree that the public waters inventory probably needs a redo. It was originally done in 1982. It's been looked at several times. The problem is that right now, Senator Wiesenberg was correct in asserting the fact that when it came to buffers, if the 16.5 feet that we currently have in statute was to be, there are some uncertainties. That's where the ag groups are coming from. If we don't fix this, at any given point in time, that could be changed. So that is definitely an issue. So again, like I said, it's pretty simple. Either it's a public waters if it's in the inventory, or it is not a public waters if it's not in the inventory. That's really at the core of the amendment.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator McHugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if somebody from the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy could come and just testify as to this amendment specifically, just to orient us around what this is about.
Yes. Do come forward, Mr. Klein.
I don't think so.
State your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Aaron Clems. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy. As I understand it, the amendment that has been offered by Senator Lang would delete the addition that was made to the definition of public waters last session. It would have no impact, as far as I understand it, on anything regarding the buffer law, which does define its scope based on the public waters inventory, not on the definition that's in statute that's being affected by this amendment. I see you shaking your head. I guess that's how I interpret it. I mean, if nonpartisan staff could weigh in on that, that'd be helpful, maybe. I just don't think we don't agree on what that would mean.
Mr. Stanley.
Mr. Chair, members, so the background here, as I think several of you have sort of attested to, is when it comes to figuring out what is a public water and so what is subject to various legal requirements, there were two sources that determined that. One was what the statute and rules said was a public water. The other was the public waters inventory. They were supposed to be 100% overlap between those two, but it turned out that there was not. And so in last year's environmental omnibus bill, you all added the language to the statute on lines 29 through 30 that basically resolved any ambiguity about whether a water was a public water or not by saying that essentially the statutory definition of a public water controlled.
Correct.
So what the amendment would do is reverse that presumption. Where there's an ambiguity, if it's on the public waters inventory, it is a public water, and that would resolve it definitively. It's so in the other direction of what the change you all made last year is. There are ambiguities, and so the question is just, do you want to resolve those in favor of the statute, or do you want to resolve those in favor of the public waters inventory?
And Mr. Chair, if I could add to
Certainly.
that, if we were to rely on the statute and the statute only and not the public waters inventory, then there's no reason for it to exist.
Mr. Klein.
The only thing I'd like to add is that the buffer statute that you were referring to earlier has a different definition of what public waters are in the buffer statute and what it applies to. According to my understanding, and I think this is, again, we can check this and see what's in the statute book, right? If something is listed on the public waters inventory, it is subject to the buffer law. That was specifically drafted as part of that compromise in the implementation of the buffer law. And it's the part where we revise the PWI, right, which is the process that you're not touching for this amendment you just said, right? That's what will change what waterways, if any, are changed, where the buffer law applies. And this definition in statute in 103G005 doesn't apply to the buffer law because the buffer law specifically uses the PWI as the basis for what waterways are affected by or required to have buffers, either 16-foot or 50-foot buffers.
Thank you. And this has a fiscal note as well, right, Senator? No, okay. I don't think so. Senator Hawj.
Mr. Chair, it's my understanding from agriculture groups that this was something that was added despite what was told to agriculture groups during the conference committee process. And so I think this is a fix, if I'm understanding Senator Lang, from what was really told to agriculture groups was communicated back to members about what the agreement was, and then this was added, you know, despite what was agreed to. So I think this is just a simple fix, in my opinion, from what was publicly agreed to with stakeholders as part of the conference committee process.
And Senator McHugh.
So I also, like Senator Kunish, I'm trying to go back, and now a lot of these arguments are actually very familiar to me. I remember this debate. So I don't know about the ag group situation or if what that is all about, but in terms of our committee here in Environment, it was my understanding that this is what we had in the law, and that this would be undoing something that we had done last year, and undoing important good work that we did to try to protect waters. So I oppose it, and if we want to talk offline about it before, when this goes to the floor, I'm happy to do that and learn more, but I'm a little, yeah, it just doesn't square with me that this is just a fix because of some misunderstanding or something. It seems like undoing something that was purposefully what we wanted to do.
Thank you, Senator McHugh. And so I'm not ready to accept this amendment as well, Senator Lane. This will undo the work that we put in so far, and the language in the past that it won't take effect until 2027. So, remember, we're going to do roll call on the A30 amendment.
Senator Hur?
No.
Senator McEwen?
No.
Senator Green? Yes. Senator Drakowski?
Aye.
Senator Hawj. Aye. Senator Hoffman?
Aye.
Senator Johnson-Stewart?
No.
Senator Kunish?
No.
Senator Lane?
Aye.
Senator Weisenberg?
Okay, there's 6 aye and 4 nay. Motion prevail. Additional amendment.
Senator Hur,
Senator Johnson-Stewart.
I have the A34 amendment.
A34 amendment.
I'm not sure if people have this one or not, but the A34 amendment refers to the aggregate mapping that I testified before this committee about, and I took out the portion of the bill that funds the mapping itself, but include the information about the need for mapping and the need for considering aggregate locations in creating local policy. So there's no fiscal note on this bill, or on this amendment, Senator.
Okay. Discussion, members?
Given the interest in time, I would also ask the pages if they could get the A31 ready.
Senator Green?
There may not be a fiscal note on the bill, but there may be, because I believe that the legislative auditor is going to require funding for this.
Well, there was a, Mr. Chair.
Senator Ann Johnson-Stewart.
Senator Green, I believe there was a cost for the mapping. We took that out. This just is about creating a policy. So to my understanding, and council can verify, there is no fiscal note on the A34. But I don't even have it in front of me right now to verify.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to Mr. Mueller, because if the legislative auditor is directed to conduct an audit, then there's going to be some expense.
Council? Mr. Mueller.
Mr. Chairman and members,
Thank
The
you.
situation here is this is directing the legislative auditor to do an audit for the purposes of the amendment. The legislative auditor has a separate commission that decides which programs that they're usually going to do audits of. We don't historically fund specific reports by the legislative auditor. They have their own funding mechanism, but this would then require them to do a certain study and not, it would sort of jump in line before the other ones that they would otherwise consider.
Senator Johnson Stewart, appreciate your bringing this back and with some modification. I'll accept it as a friendly amendment to the bill.
Thank you. And again, I've had several conversations with council to make sure that there isn't a cost. To your question, Senator Green.
Mr. Chair, one more question.
Senator Green.
Okay, on section 36, the Commissioner of Natural Resources in consultation with Asphalt Paving Association. So the DNR is going to be required to do some work here too. And if there's no expense to that, I guess that's fine. But if the Commissioner of the DNR would be willing to comment on that, if that's going to cost any money too.
Thank you, Senator Green. And as he approaches, another reminder, this all had to do with the legislative auditor's report, and it was implementing their findings. So it actually is quite a bit of research and background that I didn't bring with me as well. But I welcome the Commissioner's answer to Senator Green's question.
Assistant Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, members, I'm not going to speak to the auditor, Office of Legislative Auditor, but the language in section 36, which was part of a larger bill that had funding, which we supported at that time, will have a fiscal impact on the department to prepare this report, these recommendations. Unless it's simply just going to be a letter that we send to you that this is what we've done. But if this is going to entail meetings and work, we will need to have some resources available for it.
Senator Jurkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm on the Audit Commission. Mr. Mueller's right. Basically, a program audit then would be pushed to the front of the line legislatively. And so, you know, when we vote on the topics as a legislature, the ones that yielded from that, this would be placed in the final group, or actually maybe to the front of it because it's in law. So I don't know exactly how it would work in their budget. I'm suspecting if they aren't giving any additional money, they would simply have to drop one off in order to accommodate this one. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, members, any further discussion? All in favor of the Senator Johnson Stewart, 834 amendment, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion prevail.
Thank you, Senator Hurd. Mr. Chair, I also have another amendment, the A30, which one did I say it was? A31, which has to do, we also heard this bill before committee. It has to do with reusing stormwater or rainwater in a variety of ways. And there was some concern from if you remember, they're studying this, and we had the civil engineer on the end talking about how they've been studying this for 8 years, and I'm like, chop, chop, let's get going. So this bill, we had some offline conversations, and we agreed to a very small change in language. We actually changed one word. The PCA is okay with the language. Stakeholders are okay with the language. And what this does is it allows a city or municipality to allow irrigation or spraying with collected stormwater or rainwater. It doesn't require it, but it does allow for it.
Any discussion on Senator Johnson Stewart's 831 amendment? Senator Jurkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious about the utility of it, Senator Johnson Stewart. I mean, so we have statute actually saying we're going to allow this. I mean, if statute doesn't prohibit something, it's allowed. So it's kind of a backwards orientation to writing statute, and I don't know if we should do that. And, you know, what you might do is write something that precludes local units of government from developing, you know, preempts them from writing something around it, prohibiting it in their local jurisdiction. Because as we know, and by the way, local units of government are not local control. The people and the businesses they work in are the most local control. You know, so I think that would probably be a better approach. I mean, this would seem to me to be superfluous and another piece of a page of statute, and we've already got too many. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. And Mr. Chair, if I could just offer a little clarification. We have many stakeholders who have been studying this issue for about 8 years, including the PCA and others. And the challenge is that there are some cases where using rainwater or stormwater is very appropriate and very safe, based on, you know, expert opinions, not just me saying that. There are some cases where the PCA and others have much concern. For example, aerating this water over a football field that kids are going to play on. They want to make sure that they have control over where this rainwater is used. And so acknowledging that there are some instances where it's very safe, this language allows local agencies and government units to allow it if they have gone through their process and determined that it's safe. Again, this topic has been under study for 8 years. There's a group of stakeholders that are working on it, and the intent here is to get it moving so that we can start to use this rainwater and stormwater for purposes where it's 100% appropriate, but then still allow local units of government to control where it is inappropriate, and that goes for the PCA as well. But I want you to know the PCA did sign off on this language.
Okay. One more, Senator Weisenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess a question to Senator Johnson Stewart. Would it be appropriate? It sounds like maybe it still needs to be amended to amend it and bring it to the floor, or?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
I may have sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Johnson Stewart. I may have misheard what you said, but it sounded like you said it still might need tweaking a little bit.
Well, no, I'm sorry if I was not clear. The standards and the formal report, which they've been working on for 8 years, there will be some formal standards that come out of that stakeholder group. This allows for local units of government to say, in some cases where it's clearly something that that local unit of government approves, they may approve it. Again, the intent is to move forward and allow for some uses where there's no question within the user community or the regulatory community that it's okay. There are certainly some questions. I heard a lot of feedback from stakeholders where there's some cases where it's not okay, and that's the work that we're going to see come out of the stakeholder group.
Thank you.
Hold on just a second. All right, Member Ann Johnson Stewart, the 831 amendment. All in favor of the 831 amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion prevail. Additional amendment. Senator Weisenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to offer an oral amendment on page 110, lines 110.14. This is about the hunter preference points for children under the age of 10. It says points towards preference under this section, a person who's at least 8 years of age. I'd like to change that to 6. The intent of this was to allow children or people under the age of 10 to start accruing points, so by the time they are 10 years old, then they would be able to hunt bear. So if it takes 5 years to get enough points, they might not be able to hunt bear till they're 12. So would like to change it from 8 to 6.
Yes, Mr. Stanley.
Mr. Chair, members, the amendment is on page 110, line 14, delete 8 and insert 6.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, this isn't allowing anyone under 10 to start hunting bear. It would just, by the time if they start buying a license when they're 6, they'll accrue points. And then by the time they're 10, they'll be able to hunt bear. Possibly, yes.
Okay, see some thumb, Senator Johnson Stewart.
Just a clarification, Mr. Chair, I'm trying to remember because I don't have bear hunters in my family. Is 10 when they can start it already? Okay, thank you.
And I'll accept that as friendly amendment to it. The number was arbitrary, so, we randomly picked that number. Okay. But I'll accept that as friendly amendment, so we, say it's an oral amendment. Okay, Senator Weisenberg, oral amendment to the A4 amendment. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, opposed? Motion prevail. So we are adopting the A4 amendment.
So, yes, unless there's more amendments.
Okay. Any more amendments?
Mr. Chair, I've got an oral amendment. That amendment would be to delete Article 4, Section 8 of the bill. These are the Watercraft surcharges. Members, these surcharges are increases. I've just gone through a few of them here. 174% increase in the surcharges on using your boat. So this bill increases boat taxes 372% on line 106.18, and it increases charges throughout the section. Ostensibly, this is part of what I've seen in other committees too, Mr. Chair, when the majority is coming through and increasing taxes in the non-general fund area, and then transferring the funds over to the general fund area so they can be used there. It's pretty evident to me as we do this. The hardworking people of Minnesota need a break. We just increased taxes $10 billion in the last biennium. We spent $19 billion of over-collected tax money from the people. We now can't afford the spending that we did, and we're seeing a cliff of $6.1 billion deficit on the horizon 2 years out. And the response seems to be, let's raise taxes where we can and continue to build and grow this government. And we're even doing it here in the environment bill, taking more money out of the pockets of people to enjoy the resources that they already pay: property taxes, income taxes, sales taxes, and all kinds of other taxes, including the present Watercraft surcharge tax that's already in law here on page 106. I would ask member support to take this section out, support the oral amendment, and give a break to the people of Minnesota, because they're already fleeing our state, and we want them to stay here, Mr. Chair.
Senator Dukowski, I will not accept your oral amendment. There's many reasons why, but a few of them, it would throw this bill out of balance. That's important. And I know your reference to it as a form of tax, and it's not tax. It's not even a fee, but it's a more membership contribution. Earlier, we have discussion about wild rice. We talk about the old way of life. We talk about now we have to restore our water, our clean water. The reason our water is damaged now because of motor vehicles and all sorts of modern days contamination in our water. And so those who use those large boats or water vehicle in some degree, that the money will go to clean our water. So I'm sure that just $100 for wealthy people, $100 additional for wealthy people, they don't go broke. So I would object to your amendment, and I ask members to object as well. Yes, please, Senator Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I support the amendment. For the reasons that Senator Drazkowski said, but also for other reasons too. I've been going through the bill, and once again, I don't know if I'm going to have time to get through all the things I wanted to in this bill, or we'll be here till midnight. But there's a lot of things in this bill that even from the general fund that we could have cut. And it looks like what we did for the most part is just took the governor's recommendations. And the fact that we're facing the deficit coming forward is huge. And when we did have a surplus, I also said that if you went out and looked into Minnesota, in my district, the people weren't doing any better. And we had the money that came in, and we can discuss that another time, how it got there. But we tend to gauge how the state is doing by how much money the state takes from the citizens who are working and paying it in. And so besides the fact that the fees are pretty exorbitant, you can justify it by saying you think that someone has the money to pay it, so let's take it. But the fact is, we've got a bloated government. We just have a lot of government, and this bill by itself is adding a number of more full-time employees along with all the other bills. And so looking at the deficit coming forward, no one is even mentioning the fact that maybe we should start cutting some of the money to the agencies, and maybe more importantly, some to the nonprofits, until we can get a handle on even the fraud that's going on. So I do support the amendment. I think it's an important amendment, and I ask people to vote yes.
Any discussion? Senator McCune.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is so interesting, I think. In Minnesota now, the top 1% income-wise, they own about 1/3 of the wealth in our state. And we're a pretty progressive taxation state, which means that relative to the other states in the United States, you know, we have wealthy people pay more than like Mississippi or Alabama, right? So it's better, I guess, right? I have a bill that was heard in taxes earlier this year, but I think we don't have the votes for it, even in the DFL party, to raise taxes just by about 2 percentage points on the very highest earnings of the very highest earners. It would affect about 2% of tax filers, people making on average over $1 million a year, up in the billions too, right? That would end all the budget difficulties that we have. It would allow us to be able to make sure that the people who can pay are paying. And I want to make it really clear to people when we hear, what we heard just now is, you know what we should be doing, because we had a big budget surplus the last 2 years that was largely made of one-time money, and we used that money to pay for a backlog of services and very important things that people had been asking for years, that the people in this building and across the street didn't take care of for years. Basic services for people. So yeah, we tried to catch up with those billions of dollars, but that, of course that's gone because it was years of backlog. So now they have the gall to say, oh, you spent all that one-time money, so now what we should be doing is cutting basic services. Are you kidding me? Well, the problem is basically that we don't have the political courage in this building to raise taxes on the very wealthy. That is the problem, period. So, thank you. So I agree that the fees, I hate those. Flat taxes are regressive. We shouldn't be nickel and diming working people to pay for basic services. We should have the people who have been taking all the money from workers, from working people, and siphoning it to the top, the oligarch class, the billionaire class, and we should say, you got to give back to the society that has given you so much. We have Jeff Bezos coming around this state right now asking for sweeter tax exemptions for his company, Amazon, that he already gets. I'm not kidding. For his data centers. A man who made $1 million an hour last year. $1 million an hour. Coming around our state saying, you got to give us a little more, otherwise we're taking our jobs at other places. That's what's happening right now. So don't be fooled by this nonsense. This is an attempt to just undo our government services, the basic services, the most meager services that we have. We don't have nearly enough. You know, all of our peer nations, they provide public education for free, pre-K through higher ed. They have health care guaranteed as a right to their people. They have housing guaranteed. They have child care guaranteed. They have elder care guaranteed. Why don't we have these things? We are the wealthiest nation to ever exist on the planet. So it's absurd. We don't hear enough of this in this building, that is the real issue. It will always come back to that. And the solution almost always is that our agencies actually need more funding to do the jobs that we need them to do. You're upset with permitting reform? I'll tell you what the problem is. Our agencies don't have the funding or the staff to be able to do it efficiently in the way that they need to do it. When we go to ask for more money, they say, oh, well, it's going to be more taxes. Taxes for who? Who are you protecting? Jeff Bezos is of the world from paying their fair share. So I strongly oppose this, and I encourage people to get real. Thank you.
Senator Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And they can clap later, that's fine, but just to set some things straight. The $18 billion and plus that was gone didn't go out for just one-time services to help the poor. What it went out to was nonprofits, and we're seeing the residual effects of that with $250 million in fraud just to one group. There was no guardrails on that money. If that money had gone out to where it should have went, even to the schools, our schools would have been in better shape. We did increase funding to schools, and at the same time we increased mandates by probably 60 to up to 80 mandates on our schools, who are now going broke because they don't have the money for the mandates. So that's what went on. So I don't need to hear that. And as far as the tax breaks for the rich, okay, that's fine. You can say that all day long. If the building, let's just take the next bill, the data center. I don't care if you like data centers or not. It's business. And if someone says, I can't afford to pay the taxes in Minnesota, and you say, we don't care, we're not giving you a tax break, they're not coming to Minnesota, and we don't have any taxes from them at all. And that's a fact. And we're starving in this state for big businesses because they're moving out. And the high-income earners are moving out. And I'm not anywhere near the top percent of wage earners, not even close. But right now, the top 10% are paying probably 90% of the bill. So I just get tired of hearing all the ranting and raving about we're giving tax breaks, we're at corporate welfare. It's not corporate welfare because if they're not here, we have nothing. And the $18 billion, there was no guidelines on it. We had nonprofits coming in that had just started up that year or the year before, getting millions of dollars, and we don't know where it went. And now we're having to go after and find out where the fraud was. That money could have been used to help our people, the very people you're talking about. Now, I don't know how far we want to go down this because we were talking about the Environmental Committee, but if you want to stay here all night, I will. I'm just tired of this. Now, if you want to vote on this amendment, I think it's a good amendment, and I support it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Senator Green. Senator Jurkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur with Senator Green. If the majority wants to go put more taxes on rich people and chase more of them out, they apparently don't have the courage to do it, is what we heard from one member. And so members, what's going to happen is we chase the rich people out of this state. The rest of us are going to have to pay the bill because the bill is big. And so this might be the first of what we're seeing of that, or maybe not even the first. On page 106, the guy who owns a duck boat in Wabasha is going to get a 136% increase. I don't think he's a millionaire or billionaire or whatever has been characterized. The person in Coochin County on 106.22 is going to get an 87% increase on their canoe, their paddle board, or their rowing shell, Mr. Chair. That's what's in the bill here. So the rest of the people are having to pay under the leadership that we have going on here now because we've chased so many rich people out of this state. They're gone, the money's gone, and the size and scope and liabilities of the government are still there. And now the rest of us are going to have to pay even just to go out and shoot a duck. So that's what we see on 106. Encourage support for the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kowski. I just want a little clarification that this money will go to clean our water, make sure that we have funding for our to take care of invasive species. And even though you mentioned the large percentage, the money is not that high. I own a canoe, and if I look at here, I only pay $7 more each year. So I'm willing to pay for that. The yacht that you talk about, they own, which perhaps wealthy people can own, they only pay $70 more per year. So, and this is not reference to fee. I use the river. I want to contribute to keep it clean. I sold my canoe already, but if I still have my canoe, I will try to do my best to keep it clean. So those users with high motor boat, I'm sure they don't mind paying a little bit more because I'm with the $45,000 a year willing to pay my share of $7. So I'm sure that those who are 10 or 100 times higher than me will not mind paying their $70 per year. So, but this is all for our environment, for our clean lakes and water. So I want to have council restate the oral amendment of Senator Kowski, and then
Mr. Chair, members, the amendment would be on page 106, delete section 8.
Okay, all in favor of deleting section 8? Roll call, accepted. Yes, please. We need 3 hands. Yeah.
3 hands?
Chair Hurd?
No.
Senator McEwen?
No.
Senator Green? Senator Kowski?
Aye.
Senator House Child?
No.
Senator Hoffman?
No.
Senator Johnson Stewart?
No.
Senator Kunish?
No.
Senator Lane?
Yes.
Senator Weisenberg?
Okay, there's 4 aye and 6 nay. The oral amendment delete. The section does not prevail. Okay. Any further amendment? What about the 4? A4 is already in here, right?
You already,
Okay, adopted.
you already adopted it, so if there's no more amendments.
Senator Hawj.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the A20.
The A20.
Would you like me to describe it, Mr. Chair, or wait a second?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay.
Describe
So this is a pretty easy amendment. In '23, the Amateur Riders Motorcycle Association asked for and received a fee increase for registration. The fee went from $30 to $45, and these fees were on 3-year license. That fee had not been increased since 1992. But the dedication in the base language rider was not changed at the time to allow the fee revenue from the increase to enter the system. This amendment simply changes the amount from $150,000 to $225,000 to account for the increased revenue from that fee increase.
Mr. Mueller, please advise.
Mr. Chairman and members, the 820 amendment increases the amount of money that is coming from a very specific account. It's the off-highway motorcycle account. And this increases the amount that can go for grant and aid trails. And the fee increase that Senator Hawj was talking about is already generating money in the account, and the account can handle this increase going forward to be spent on grant and aid trails. Mr. Chairman, members, this is all coming from the off-highway motorcycle account and does not affect the general fund.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor of the A4 amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, A20. A20 amendment, A4 is the bill itself. All in favor of the A20th amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion prevail. It's been a while, members. Okay. Any additional amendment? Okay. All right, I know that some people want to testify. My committee to accept your letters, so you can send a letter to my committee and we'll share with, we'll keep it as a record and also share to members here as well. So since there's no amendment, I move that the Senate File 2077 be recommended to pass as amended and be referred to the Senate Finance Committee, and that nonpartisan staff be allowed to make technical changes. All in favor of that, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion prevail. Thank you all. Next on our agenda, okay. All right, well, we'll not get to our second bill, but thank you everybody for being here, and motions, the committee is adjourned, so you may clap.